Dream of the Red Chamber, Chapter 75.
The brilliance of this specific chapter, it really lies in its dual frequency.
What do you mean by dual frequency?
Well, on the surface frequency, you just have aristocrats walking between courtyards, drinking tea, complaining about minor ailments.
Sounds like a normal Tuesday.
Right, exactly. But if you tune into the lower frequency, the alarm bells of institutional collapse are ringing so loudly it's almost deafening.
It's palpable. So, we start with the character Yushi.
Yes.
She is already completely on edge. She's just stormed out of Ji Chun's place in a huff, and she heads over to see Lady Wang.
Right, she's looking for an audience.
But before she can even cross the threshold into the courtyard, she gets physically intercepted.
By the senior nurses.
Yeah, this group of old nurses stops her right in her tracks and whispers a very clear warning. Basically, do not go inside.
And the justification they give for stopping her is incredibly ominous.
Oh, it's terrifying.
They inform Yushi that servants from the Zen family have arrived.
Right.
And they brought things with them. They're currently inside conducting some sort of hushed, off-the-books business with Lady Wang.
Which, we really need to contextualize the sheer terror of that visit for you listening.
Please do.
Because the nurses mentioned that according to the official Imperial Gazette, the Zen family was just raided by the authorities.
A massive raid.
Yeah, their entire estate was confiscated, and they're currently being summoned to the capital to face severe punishment.
Right, so this is not a minor scandal.
No, it is absolute catastrophic ruin.
Exactly.
Consider this in a modern context, right? Imagine your incredibly wealthy neighbor gets raided by federal agents.
The black SUVs pull up.
Yeah, agents tear the house apart in hazmat suits, they freeze all the bank accounts, tape off the doors, the whole 9 yards.
A complete takedown.
And then an hour later, that same neighbor sneaks through your back gate carrying an overstuffed duffel bag, asking for a favor.
Which is just insane.
Why on earth would Lady Wang entertain this visit? The Zen family is politically radioactive at this point.
Radioactive is the perfect word.
It feels like pure hubris to even open the door for them.
What's fascinating here is the climate of absolute paranoia that has taken hold.
Yeah.
And it's warring with this lingering sense of aristocratic invulnerability.
Oh, like they think they're above the law.
Exactly. Lady Wang might believe the walls of their compound are thick enough to hide imperial contraband, right? But the physical environment betrays the truth.
The nurses looks terrified.
Right. Their color is completely drained. The danger has crossed the threshold. The contagion of the Zen family's ruin is literally inside their house now.
Wow, yeah.
And notice how the spatial dynamics mimic the psychological state of the family.
How so?
Well, Yushi is physically blocked from entering the room by the nurses, right? Which maps perfectly onto the emotional blocking of the truth.
Oh, I see.
Everyone knows the Zen family has fallen. Everyone knows the authorities are circling. But the official family policy is just enforced silence.
Just ignore it and it'll go away.
Exactly.
It's an open secret that is suffocating everyone.
E.
And because Yushi is barred from seeing Lady Wang, she pivots, right?
Yeah.
She goes to visit Li Wan instead.
A very fateful pivot.
Yeah, and this transition takes us from the secret high-stakes treason at the back door straight into the bizarre hypocrisy of their daily etiquette.
It really is bizarre. The scene in Li Wan's room shrinks that macro-level anxiety down into a micro-level conflict.
Over completely trivial things.
Right.
So Yushi walks in, completely unsettled by the massive scandal she just brushed up against. And Li Wan is sitting up in bed, recovering from an illness. Her maids ask if Yushi wants to wash her face. And this is where the tension snaps.
Over makeup.
Literally over makeup. Li Wan's maid, Su Yun, brings over some makeup and offers her own personal supply to Yushi.
Right.
She says something like, if you don't mind it being dirty, you can use mine.
Which is a glaring breach of protocol.
Oh, totally.
A noble lady using a servant's makeup, that is unheard of in their social structure.
Yeah, and Li Wan immediately scolds the maid. She demands to know why she didn't fetch proper makeup from the other room.
Because of the optics.
Right. But Yushi, who is just deeply jaded at this point, she just waves it off.
She doesn't care.
She claims she doesn't mind the dirty makeup at all. And then she proceeds to break etiquette herself.
She sits on the bed.
Yeah, she sits cross-legged right on the edge of the bed. But, and watch what happens next, a younger maid, Chow Dower, brings over a large basin of warm water.
For her face.
Right. And because the basin is heavy, she simply bends over at the waist, to hold it for Yushi rather than dropping down to her knees.
Another noticeable lapse in formal manners.
Exactly. And Li Wan points it out, criticizing the girl's lack of manners. But this time, Yushi's own maid, Yin Dai, fiercely attacks the young girl.
Oh, she goes off on her.
She accuses the young maid of taking advantage of their leniency, acting disrespectfully just because they are in a different room.
Right.
And the terrified young maid just scrambles to kneel down with his heavy basin.
It's so uncomfortable to read.
It really is. And watching this ridiculous performative scolding over a wash basin, Yushi finally hits a breaking point.
She delivers that devastating line.
Yeah, she says, "People in our family only know about fake outer manners, but the actual deeds are enough to make one sick."
That quote is essentially the thesis of the entire chapter.
Wow, yeah.
It makes Li Wan realize that Yushi is fully aware of the chaos from the night before. You know, the internal garden raids and the terrifying strife creeping into their home.
I have to push back on Yushi's specific reaction here, though.
Okay, go for it.
Why is she perfectly fine breaking the rules with the servant's makeup and sitting cross-legged on a bed, but she becomes completely cynical and utterly disgusted by the maid's posture with the wash basin?
Right, it seems contradictory.
Yeah. Why does the wash basin break her?
Well, she isn't disgusted by the maid, she is disgusted by the system.
Oh, interesting.
The family is obsessing over micro-etiquette while completely ignoring massive moral and legal decay.
Ah, I see.
Think about what Yushi just witnessed, right? Her family is harboring smuggled assets of a disgraced, raided family.
At the back door.
Yes, they are actively courting treason. Yet inside this bedroom, the most fiercely policed scandal is whether a teenager bends at the waist or drops to her knees to hold a bowl of water.
That is wild when you put it like that.
It is the ultimate symptom of an institution in deep denial. When the macro structure, the law, their survival, their morality is completely out of their control, people fiercely police the microstructure.
Because it's all they have left.
Exactly. They cling to these tiny performative rules because it's the only thing they can still dominate. The outer manners are kept pristine precisely because the inner core is rotten.
It's like a surgeon obsessing over the exact brand and color of the bandages, right? While the patient is actively bleeding out on the operating table.
That's a great analogy. The misplaced focus is a coping mechanism for incompetence.
Yeah. And that realization of a sinking ship makes total sense if it happens next in the text.
The exodus begins.
Right. Because while Yushi is paralyzed by this hypocrisy, other characters are actively fighting for a spot on the lifeboats.
We get to watch two drastically different survival strategies play out in real time here.
Yeah, first, Bao Chai arrives.
Right.
And she brings a perfectly crafted, polite excuse to leave the garden entirely.
She's getting out of there.
She claims her mother is unwell, the women at her home are sick, and as a dutiful daughter, she must go keep her mother company.
A bulletproof excuse.
Seriously. She's moving so fast she isn't even waiting to formally tell the elders. She just wants Li Wan to know so she isn't blamed for disappearing.
She's covering her bases.
And she even diplomatically suggests Qi Xiangyun move in with Li Wan while she's gone, just to tie up loose ends. It's an incredibly clean exit.
It's a flawless maneuver.
Yeah.
Bao Chai reads the room perfectly.
She knows what's coming.
Oh, absolutely. The Zen family raid is the ultimate warning sign, and she is using the unassailable shield of filial piety, caring for a sick parent, to legally distance herself from the blast radius.
And then Tanjin walks in.
Yes, with Zhang Yun.
Right. And Tanjin drops all the polite pretense immediately.
He doesn't have time for it.
She hears Bao Chai is leaving and fully supports it. But she says bluntly, it's better to leave before being driven out.
Ooh.
And then she delivers one of the most chilling metaphors in the text.
The black-eyed chickens?
Yes. She states that they are a family of flesh and blood, but they act like black-eyed chickens, hating each other and wanting to eat each other.
It's such a visceral image. You can instantly picture these birds locked in a cramped cage, right? Turning their beaks on one another because they are trapped in panic.
Exactly. Tanjin refuses to maintain the silence. She openly discusses the terrifying internal raid from the night before.
She just airs it all out.
And she drops several massive details that show how fractured the family is. Like she reveals that Shi Chun is acting extremely aloof and detached from everything.
Completely checked out.
She mentions that Shi Veng is mysteriously sick again, pointing to the physical breakdown of the household's management.
Right, the leadership is failing.
She notes that the elder lady is scapegoating Wang Shanbao's wife for being a busybody. And most shockingly,
This part is crazy.
Tanjin admits that during the search, she slapped that same servant, Wang Shanbao's wife, right in the face.
Just struck her.
And she essentially dares anyone to punish her for it.
The contrast between the two women is stark, isn't it?
It really is.
Bao Chai plays the quiet diplomat, quietly packing her bags. Tan Chun is throwing verbal bombs and physically lashing out.
Here's where it gets really interesting, though.
Okay.
If Bao Chai's response to the crisis is flight, Tan Chun's response is clearly fight.
Right.
But look at who she is fighting. She slapped a servant. She's yelling at her relatives. Is Tan Chun's aggressive response actually brave, or is it just the defense mechanism of a cornered animal?
That's a really good point.
Because Bao Chai has an outside home to retreat to. Tan Chun is trapped inside the cage.
Yeah, she has nowhere to go.
She can't flee the sinking ship, so she's just punching the walls.
This raises an important question, though, about how groups handle existential threats.
Oh, totally.
What we are witnessing through Tan Chun is essentially institutional cannibalism.
Cannibalism, wow.
Yeah. When external pressure mounts, like the terrifying news of the Zen family's confiscation or the internal garden raids, the group does not band together to solve the problem.
Right, they turn inward.
They displace their anxiety onto each other. Tan Chun slapping the servant wasn't really about the servant's actions.
It was about control.
Exactly. It was a desperate assertion of power in a moment where she felt entirely powerless.
Makes so much sense.
The elders are shifting blame, the youths are turning on each other, and the family is essentially consuming itself from the inside out before the imperial authorities even have to lift a finger.
It's total self-destruction, fueled purely by panic.
Precisely.
Now, if the middle generation is paralyzed by hypocrisy and the youth are cannibalizing each other, we have to look at the supreme leadership.
We have to.
What is the head of the family doing to stop the bleeding?
And this brings us to Grandmother Jia.
Yes.
Her reaction is perhaps the most complex psychological moment in the entire chapter.
So, Lady Wang, who we know was just secretly meeting with the Zen family servants, she comes to Grandmother Jia to deliver the terrible news.
Right, she has to report up.
She informs the matriarch that the Zen family has been confiscated and summoned to the capital for crimes.
The worst possible news.
And Grandmother Jia is visibly upset by this. But her immediate response is astounding.
It's unbelievable.
She says, let's not worry about other people's business. Let's plan the August 15th mid-autumn moon viewing.
The sky is falling, so she schedules a party.
Literally. Lady Wang actually tries to inject a tiny dose of reality into the room.
She tries her best.
She gently points out that the garden is feeling awfully empty these days, and the night wind is getting genuinely cold.
It's freezing outside.
But Grandmother Jia dismisses reality entirely. She tells them to just wear more clothes, insisting it's the right spot, and they cannot fail to go.
She is mandating an outdoor moon viewing party in the freezing cold.
Exactly.
It is the brutal enforcement of normalcy.
And the surreal nature of this denial, it just peaks during dinner.
Oh, the dinner scene.
The meal is served, and Baokin is there helping to serve the food. And on top of Grandmother Ji's usual massive spread, extra, highly extravagant dishes arrive.
The filial offerings.
Right. Special luxury dishes sent by the various household branches to show their devotion.
Right, to curry favor.
But Grandmother Jia looks at this luxury and actually complains. She tells her senior maid she's told them to stop doing this, noting that times are not as prosperous as they used to be.
The irony is suffocating.
Totally.
She complains about the cost of dinner while simultaneously forcing a lavish mid-autumn festival party.
Yeah, it's wild. So Lady Wang steps in to diffuse the tension. She mentions she's eating vegetarian today. And knowing the old lady doesn't care for the usual tofu dishes, she offers a remarkably simple dish.
The pepper oil with pureed greens.
Right, it's a rustic, peasant-style condiment. And Grandmother Jia's eyes just light up. She says, that's exactly right. That is exactly what I was craving. And she has them move this simple peasant dish right in front of her.
It's such a specific detail.
So what does this all mean? We have the matriarch of a crumbling dynasty forcing her family to sit in the freezing cold for a mandatory party, complaining about luxury, and suddenly craving peasant food.
If we connect this to the bigger picture, this is the ultimate manifestation of top-down delusion.
Yeah.
Grandmother Jia is the captain of the ship. The news of the Zen family is the water rushing over the deck.
Kind of taking on water fast.
Exactly. But if she admits the ship is sinking, the panic becomes real. So she enforces the moon viewing party. It's a performative ritual of stability.
She's faking it.
She's forcing everyone to act out the roles of a happy, prosperous family, pretending the black-eyed chickens aren't ripping each other apart just outside her door.
Meanwhile, and the luxury on display here, it is not about nutrition at all.
No, not even a little bit.
It's a mechanism.
Yeah.
It's purely for signaling absolute, unassailable wealth.
I mean, the menu alone requires a massive logistical empire. We have the dish I just mentioned earlier, chicken marrow, bamboo shoots.
Which is just wild to think about.
It is. Think about the sheer labor involved there. In an era before modern supply chains, you are slaughtering dozens of chickens just to extract enough bone marrow to flavor a single side dish of bamboo shoots.
Right.
It is this aggressive consumption of resources purely for a minor flavor enhancement.
Yeah, and then there's that mysterious dish sent over from the elder master,
Well,
right?
yeah, the highly prized red rice porridge. And, of course, the air-dried civet cat.
Which, I mean, involves exotic trapping, preserving, and transporting across multiple provinces without any refrigeration.
The expense required just to put those specific items on a single table is staggering.
It's astronomical. But what's fascinating here is that the food itself is almost secondary to the ritual of the food.
What do you mean by that?
Well, pay attention to how Gia Mother actually interacts with this massive feast.
Okay.
She tastes this microscopic little bit of the dishes sent by the elder master, and then she immediately sends the rest back.
Right. She actually commands the servants. She says, tell them I've eaten it. Don't send it every day. I will ask for it when I want it.
Exactly.
I view that as like a powerful corporate CEO handing out end-of-year bonuses while simultaneously putting her executives firmly in their place.
That's a great way to look at it.
Yeah, she's executing this really subtle flex of power. She acknowledges the tribute, but she publicly demonstrates that she doesn't actually need it.
Right. She is dictating the exact terms of their interaction.
And then she strategically distributes all the leftovers.
This part is so telling.
She gives the premium red rice porridge to Zhifeng. Then she points to the bamboo shoots and the civet cat and allocates those to Dayu and Baoyu.
The favored, kind of spoiled teenagers of the house.
Yep. And finally, she hands a bowl of meat to the young great-grandson, Jialan.
So she is physically mapping out the entire hierarchy of the estate right there at the table.
Yeah, she's broadcasting her political affections through the distribution of luxury proteins.
It is a masterclass in the economy of favors. I mean, this isn't just a sweet grandmother sharing food with her grandkids.
Not at all.
This is a display of absolute matriarchal authority. She is the sun, and the entire household orbits around her dining table.
Right.
She even commands the senior servants, Yuan Yang and Hupo, to sit down and eat alongside a noble woman, Yushi.
Who is the head of the East Mansion, by the way?
Exactly. And why does she do this? Because Gia Mother simply enjoys watching a crowded, lively table.
She says it's most interesting to watch many people eat.
Right. Her personal entertainment completely dictates the strict social norms of the room. She just bends the rigid class structure of the dynasty whenever she feels like it.
Well, I actually have to challenge that interpretation a bit.
Oh, how so?
You are calling this absolute matriarchal authority, but if she is so completely in control, how does she not know her own kitchen is actively failing?
That's a fair point.
Like,
Yeah.
is she actually in charge, or is she just an isolated figurehead at this point? It seems to me like her staff is merely managing her.
Projecting this sort of Truman Show reality for her.
Yes. Projecting this endless wealth to keep her happy while the ship is actively sinking beneath her.
That is a really crucial distinction, actually, and it gets right to the heart of how top-heavy organizations fail.
Because true authority requires accurate information, right?
Exactly. Gia Mother has the power to dictate who eats what, sure, but she has been entirely cut off from the data of her own survival.
The system is perfectly designed to protect her from bad news.
And that facade of endless abundance and control is exactly what makes the very next moment in the dining room incredibly jarring.
Oh man, yeah. Right in the middle of this flex of infinite wealth, a massive structural crack appears.
The rice crisis.
Yes, the race crisis. So Yushi, the noblewoman and guest of honor at this table, is accidentally served a bowl of cheap, lower-grade servant's rice.
Instead of her usual fine white, non-glutinous rice.
Right. And when the staff is asked, hey, why on earth was a noblewoman handed the cheap stuff, the servant provides an excuse that just defies all logic.
It makes no sense.
The servant claims that because one extra girl showed up to eat today, the kitchen completely ran out of the matriarch's fine rice.
I mean, in a house that is serving air-dried civet cat and literally extracting chicken marrow.
Right.
The logistical supply chain cannot handle a single unexpected variable.
They do not have one extra bowl of premium rice in the entire kitchen.
It's staggering.
And then Lady Wang, one of the senior women, she immediately jumps in to do damage control.
Oh, her excuse is amazing.
She claims that, well, over the last year or two, the weather has been terrible with droughts and floods. And because the tenant farms haven't been able to deliver their full quotas of grain, the estate has been forced to budget the fine rice exactly, portion by portion.
Right, blaming the weather.
I don't buy the weather excuse for a single second. I mean, come on, the climate is just a polite cover-up for sheer financial mismanagement.
You think they're just covering it up?
Absolutely. If you are that wealthy, you have reserves. You just buy rice from another province.
Well, the text actually provides the evidence to back up your suspicion there.
Oh, it does.
Yeah, Lady Wang is absolutely just saving face. The weather might be a convenient variable, but the reality of the estate's finances is exposed by the senior servant, Yuan Yang.
Right. She chimes in with that very specific idiom.
Yes. She says, we are making hats exactly to the size of the head.
Making hats exactly to the size of the head, meaning there is absolutely no extra fabric, no margin for error whatsoever.
Exactly. It implies exact calculation out of absolute necessity.
Wow.
What this means, profoundly, is that this massive aristocratic estate, this family that projects an image of an untouchable generational wealth,
Yeah.
is essentially living paycheck to paycheck.
That is wild.
They have zero liquid assets. They have zero buffer. One extra teenager sits down at the table, and the entire logistical supply chain of the household just completely breaks down.
The financial reserves are entirely depleted.
Yes.
But Gia Mother actually laughs it off. She quotes a proverb, she says, "Even a clever daughter-in-law cannot cook porridge without rice, and everyone just has a good chuckle."
Right. Let's all laugh at the funny joke.
But the illusion of wealth has just been entirely punctured. I mean, if the matriarchs are sitting in the dining room, literally counting grains of rice to keep up appearances.
You really have to wonder where all the massive generational wealth actually went.
Exactly, it has to be bleeding out somewhere. And to find out, we follow Yushi as she leaves this incredibly tense, awkward dinner.
And the transition in the text here is brilliant. It moves us from the bright, heavily populated, highly controlled environment of the dining room, straight into the dark, silent night of the outer estate.
The physical details of her departure are incredibly specific, too. She leaves after dark, and to maintain the quiet, respectful atmosphere of the inner estate.
Her carriage isn't pulled by horses.
Right. It is silently dragged over the stone steps by 7 or 8 servant boys.
Which just emphasizes the sheer scale of their domestic staff.
Yeah.
And the extreme lengths they go to just to maintain the illusion of peace. They are literally using human labor as shock absorbers just to keep the noise down.
It is. Here's where it gets really interesting. It's like leaving a very tense corporate boardroom budget meeting where everyone is quietly panicking about missing office supplies.
Right.
Taking a wrong turn down a dark hallway and realizing a rogue corporate subsidiary is running an off-the-books slush fund.
That is exactly what it feels like.
Because as Yushi's silent carriage approaches the gates, she looks out and sees 4 or 5 large carriages parked outside in the dark.
And she immediately knows they belong to gamblers.
She just knows.
Yushi actually has an incredibly poignant observation in the text here.
What does she say?
She looks at these carriages, knowing they belong to the wealthy young heirs of other families, and she wonders out loud how much money these young men's parents work so hard to earn,
Oh, man.
only for their sons to throw it all away purely for amusement.
It's a moment of deep empathy paired with intense irony.
Very intense.
She is lamenting the financial ruin of other families while standing in the courtyard of her own financially ruined family.
The sensory contrast here is spectacular, too.
Oh, absolutely. We just spent all this time in a dining room where the tension was completely silent, where people spoke in polite proverbs about missing rice.
Right.
And now, as Yushi creeps past the Tiangstang Pavilion, what does she actually hear?
Shouting, praising. The text beautifully translates the noise as hating 5 and cursing 6.
Hating 5 and cursing 6.
Yeah, it is the sound of frantic, emotional, high-stakes gambling.
You can practically hear the dice hitting the wooden table and someone screaming because they crapped out.
Exactly. It is loud, it is vulgar, and it's totally chaotic.
The silent, strained elegance of the grandmother's dining room is directly, inextricably linked to the loud reality of this pavilion. The two spaces cannot exist independently.
No, the illusion of the dining room provides the institutional cover for the reality of the pavilion.
This stark contrast forces a massive logistical question for you as the listener.
Hmm.
How did a noble family estate, one that is completely obsessed with Confucian rules and strict propriety, turn into an underground casino in the first place?
It's a great question.
Like, how do you even set that up without the elders or the accountants or the matriarch noticing the noise and the missing funds?
Well, this is the most insidious part of the entire narrative, and it revolves around the character Jia Zhen.
Okay.
He is the clan head of the Ningguo mansion, and he is technically in a formal period of mourning.
Right, which is a big deal.
Huge. In Qing Dynasty culture, this means he is legally and socially forbidden from listening to music, attending plays, or throwing parties.
He is supposed to be sitting quietly, reflecting on his loss.
But he is bored out of his mind.
Of course he is.
So he invents this highly manipulative loophole.
He decides to host a daily archery practice for the local wealthy, idle heirs.
Right.
The text actually refers to these trust fund kids as silk pants.
Silk pants, yeah.
But how could the elders of the family be so easily fooled by this? I mean, they aren't stupid. How did he sell archery practice to the strict patriarchs of the house?
He weaponized their own cultural values right against them.
Really? How?
Well, Confucian filial piety means the elders, Jia Shi and Jia Zhang, expect absolute obedience and adherence to traditional form.
Okay.
So Jia Zhen pitches this gathering not as a party, but as noble martial arts discipline.
Oh, that is sneaky.
Very. And to make it interesting, he claims that shooting arrows without a wager ruins form.
He tells them you need pressure to perform well.
Exactly. So he institutes a system of fines and prizes to motivate the archers.
And the elders just buy it.
They don't audit the archery club because questioning a formal demonstration of ancestral martial arts would be questioning the ancestors themselves.
Wow, so their strict adherence to traditional values creates a massive blind spot.
Precisely.
It is literally like a corporate subsidiary that starts off running team building exercises on the company credit card.
Right.
And because the corporate office never audits the team building budget, it just slowly morphs. Jia Zhen dresses up gambling as self-improvement.
And it works so well. The elders hear about this and actually praise him.
They say martial arts are part of the family heritage.
Yep. And they are so thoroughly tricked that they send the younger boys of the family, Bao Yu, Jia Lan, Jia Kong, and Jia Huan to join in.
They essentially mandate underage gambling for the kids under the guise of physical education.
Yeah, Jia Zhen knows exactly what to say to get the institutional stamp of approval. And he even protects his own liability while he does it.
Wait, how does he do that?
He doesn't put his own name on the invitations. He uses his son, Jia Rong, as the official host of this archery club.
Oh my God.
Yeah, just to avoid taking any direct blame if things go sideways.
He throws his own son under the bus just to set the board.
Basically, yeah.
But what gets me is how fast this escalated. I mean, you don't just jump from, hey, we are in a period of solemn mourning to, hey, we are running a high-stakes craps table.
Right, the psychological leap is too massive for the participants.
Exactly.
You don't just jump, you need a bridge. You need to slowly desensitize the participants to the rule breaking.
And Jia Zhen built that bridge deliberately, right?
Very deliberately, in 3 distinct phases. This timeline perfectly illustrates how institutions slowly legitimize bad behavior.
So phase 1 is the archery club itself. They invite everyone over, and to be good hosts, they start slaughtering pigs, sheep, ducks, and geese. The text says it becomes a competition to see who has the best personal chefs. It starts as just gluttony and showing off.
Right, so step 1. You normalize the gathering and make it highly desirable through luxury. You create a solid reason for people to congregate regularly.
And then phase 2 happens after just a few days.
Yeah.
Jia Zhen suddenly claims arm fatigue. He says his shoulder hurts from all this noble archery, so they should rest their arms and just play some cards.
It's a little harmless betting to pay for the wine, right?
Right.
So step 2, you shift the activity from physical exertion to passive entertainment. You introduce the mechanism of chance while everyone is already gathered and comfortable.
And then we hit phase 3. Fast forward a few months to the present day in the text.
The bows and arrows are completely abandoned.
Gone. They are openly running a high-stakes, dice-throwing, card-playing casino right in the pavilion.
The archery was literally just the bait on the hook.
Because to hide a casino, you need a legitimate reason for noise, crowds, and the movement of money.
Exactly. Archery provides the loud thwack of arrows, the cheering, the gathering of carriages outside.
And the wagers are just framed as fines for missing the target. It is brilliant money laundering.
It really is. And this brings us to the ultimate betrayal.
Yeah, the biggest question of all.
Why is this allowed to continue? How do they hide the missing funds from the accountants?
Why doesn't someone just tell the matriarch or the elders who still think their kids are outside learning how to shoot a bow?
Because everyone who is supposed to be guarding the vault is getting a piece of the pie.
Wow.
The family servants, the people whose entire job is to maintain the order, the ledgers, and the rules of the estate, are keeping it a complete secret from the outside world.
They control the doors and the accounting books.
Yep. They cook the books by over-ordering supplies for the archery practice, and they skim off the top of the gambling ring.
That is the true anatomy of a collapse.
It is. The system is eating itself from the inside out. The watchdogs have been bribed with the meat of the house they are supposed to be guarding.
Right.
Institutions rarely collapse from a sudden external attack. They collapse when the people inside become complicit in the decay.
They collapse when the people who know better choose to ignore the warnings.
Simply because they are temporarily profiting from the downfall.
The servants took the bribes. The elders enjoyed the illusion of discipline.
The matriarch enjoyed the illusion of abundance.
Everyone played a part in ignoring the rot. The family patriarch, Jia Zhen, is hosting this highly exclusive, heavily insulated gambling party.
Oh, and is a scene. It's loud, it's chaotic, and it's just thick with desperation.
Totally. The text mentions they're playing dominoes in a game called Snatching New Fast.
Yeah, snatching of fast, which, by the way, is essentially this rapid-fire, highly volatile tile game.
Like where fortunes swing in a matter of seconds?
Exactly. It relies heavily on immediate chance rather than, long-term strategy, which is incredibly fitting for the Gia family at this point.
Because they're basically relying on chaotic luck to maintain their own status now.
You hit the nail on the head. They are snatching at temporary gains before the inevitable crash.
Wow. Okay, so let's look at who is actually in this room, because the social dynamics here are just wild before the real drama even kicks off.
The guest list tells you everything you need to know.
Right, so first we have Zhu Pan. The text calls him the foolish big brother. He basically just loses money all night but stays completely happy about it.
He's the ideal mark. I mean, everyone is just feeding his ego to keep his wallet open.
But then there's the other guy, Jing Dequan, and he is known as the silly uncle.
Yes, the silly uncle. He drinks heavily, he gambles, he spends freely on nightlife.
But the text notes something really specific about him, right? He treats everyone, from the highest masters to the lowest servants, exactly the same.
He really does. He has absolutely no ulterior motives. He doesn't care about class or wealth. He only cares if you like to drink.
Which, wait, let me push back on that nickname for a second. If he's the only guy not constantly calculating social leverage, why do they call him silly?
Well, because of the society they live in.
It's like he's the only guy making sense at a pretentious gala because he's drinking directly from the punch bowl.
That's actually a perfect analogy. In this deeply stratified transactional society, being egalitarian isn't a virtue, it's a threat.
Oh, because it devalues the status of the nobleman.
Exactly. If you treat a servant as an equal, you're ruining the game for all the other Eadlins in Rome.
Yes.
So to neutralize him, they just label him silly.
They reframe his lack of pretense as like a mental defect.
Right. And this tension becomes glaringly obvious during this incident with the young escorts serving drinks.
Oh man, this part is brutal. So Zheng Dequan is on a losing streak, and he realizes these escorts are completely ignoring him.
They're entirely focused on the winner, Zhu Pan, just fawning over him.
So Zheng gets mad, he calls them out, and in a normal setting, you'd think the servers would apologize and just pour the drink right.
But they don't do that. Not at all.
No, they kneel down and explicitly state their entire worldview out loud.
It's a breathtaking moment of candor.
They literally tell him that they are taught to only respect temporary wealth and power. They say even if someone were a living Buddha, if they didn't have money, they'd ignore them.
Yeah, spiritual merit, moral character, human dignity, it's all completely worthless currency to them.
Which is just so cynical. But this transactional worldview spoken by the escorts.
It serves as the unwritten rule for the entire society. The escorts are just the only ones desperate or cynical enough to actually say it out loud.
Which perfectly transitions us to the family dynamics, because the aristocrats are doing the exact same thing to each other, aren't they?
Oh, absolutely. The escorts follow the money, and as we're about to see, the sacred bonds of family are just as transactional.
Right, so Xing Dequan is forced to drink these penalty cups of wine, he gets drunk, and the truth just spills out.
He starts bitterly complaining about his own sister, Xing Madam.
In the middle of this crowded gambling room, He reveals that when their mother died, his eldest sister basically took all the family wealth into her own marriage.
She left him and his other sisters with absolutely nothing.
And he's claiming he just wants his own family's money, which is now somehow controlled by a servant, Wang Shanbao's wife.
Yes, which is a complete inversion of power.
Yeah.
A servant of the Jia family has more control over his inheritance than he does.
But wait, let me ask you about the framing of this scene. Because he's shouting this in a room full of men, but someone is listening outside, right?
Yes, the most important listener isn't even at the table. It's Jia Zhen's wife, Yushi.
She's eavesdropping outside the window.
Exactly. And the text notes she can't go inside because of the strict spatial boundaries of vice.
What do you mean?
Well, respectable women and adult men of status avoid this specific room. It's serviced only by boys under 15.
Because boys under 15 aren't considered full adult men yet.
Right, so they exist in this weird liminal space where the strict rules of gender segregation can be bent. It makes the room a quarantine zone of vice.
So she's trapped outside just listening to her own family's moral collapse.
And she has this dark realization. She hears these complaints and realizes that if blood relatives fight this bitterly over money, you really can't blame outsiders for being greedy.
Right. It's like, have you ever accidentally uncovered a massive family secret just by standing in the wrong hallway?
It's a universal feeling, honestly.
The sheer toxicity hidden behind closed doors is timeless. But she doesn't get to sit with this realization for long, does she?
No, she is driven away in complete disgust.
Because a young, rich guest makes an incredibly crude, vulgar joke about Xing Dequan's anatomy.
Right. The moment something genuine and painful is brought up, the society deploys vulgarity to drown it out. It's an anesthetic.
Wow. So she just walks away.
Right.
Which brings us to Jia Zhen, because he realizes the party is getting way out of hand and shuts it down.
But he doesn't actually deal with the ugly reality of his family's decay.
No, of course not. He tries to paper over it with an even more elaborate, highly exclusive party the very next night.
It's the mechanics of sunk cost face saving. You have to project invulnerability when you are most vulnerable.
And this is where things get truly weird. We're at this private, mid-autumn banquet he throws for his wives and concubines at the thick green hall.
The sensory overload in this scene is intense.
The text describes peacock screens.
Hibiscus cushions.
Right. Roast pig, roast sheep, live flute playing and singing under this impossibly bright moonlight.
It is the pinnacle of aristocratic aesthetics, designed to overwhelm the senses so you don't think about the rot.
But then, at the third watch of the night, when Jia Zhen is quite drunk, the supernatural turn happens.
It's unmistakable.
They hear a long, mysterious sigh coming directly from the wall near the family's ancestral shrine.
And everyone in the room hears it clearly.
The atmosphere gets so creepy. Jia Zhen yells out, but there's no answer. A cold wind blows over the wall.
You can hear the heavy wooden doors of the ancestral shrine creaking open and closed on their own.
The moonlight suddenly turns pale. The text literally says everyone's hair stands on end.
I mean, the ancestral shrine is the spiritual anchor of the family compound. To have a sound come from there is the ultimate condemnation.
It's a classic omen. The ancestors are literally sighing, mourning the moral and financial decay that was just exposed the night before.
And how does Jia Zhen process this? He tries to rationalize and he says, oh, it must be a servant sneaking around.
But he knows there are no servant quarters there.
Exactly. The shrine is intentionally isolated.
This is the ultimate, ignore the check engine light moment.
That's exactly what it is.
Your ancestors are sighing loudly through the wall, the moonlight turns pale, and he just wakes up the next morning, checks the shrine, sees nothing is physically broken, and decides to keep it a secret.
Because acknowledging it would require him to dismantle his entire way of life. It's just easier to live with a ghost than to live without wealth.
Which naturally leads us to the morning after. Because he decides to ignore the warning, he has to keep up appearances.
The grueling everyday work of maintaining the family's facade never stops.
He goes from sweeping literal ghosts under the rug to making polite small talk with the family matriarch, Jia Mother.
The contrast here is so jarring.
It really is. Instead of talking about ancestral ghosts or stolen inheritances, they are having incredibly mundane conversations.
Like discussing Baiyu's archery skills.
Right. Jia Zhen gives this formal report on how his form and strength have improved, and Jia Mother just warns him not to let the boy get hurt.
It's a complete pantomime of functional family life.
But the masterpiece of this scene is the conversation about the food.
The watermelon conversation.
Yes. Jia Mother compliments the mooncakes made by a new chef, But then she casually notes that the watermelons this year were subpar.
They lacked flavor. And Jia Zhen and Jia Zheng quickly offer this highly rational explanation,
They practically trip over themselves. They're like, oh, there was too much rain this year.
which perfectly encapsulates their reality. They are desperate to find polite, rational explanations for slightly bad watermelons.
While completely ignoring the glaring, irrational horrors of the sighing ancestors.
Exactly. Analyzing the fruit is safe. It's an external tragedy that requires no moral reflection. The scene shifts.
The sources paint an image of just staggering wealth here. The main gates of the family's sprawling garden are thrown wide open,
Right.
and they have illuminated all the paths with these sheephorn lanterns. And these weren't your standard paper lanterns, by the way.
No.
Artisans would actually boil and stretch real sheep horns until they were paper thin and translucent.
Which is wild.
Right. It creates this durable, softly glowing lamp that served as just a massive flex of disposable income.
And it doesn't stop there. Up on the terrace, they're branding this bucket-shaped incense, right? They call it Duke Xiang.
Yeah, these elaborate, multi-tiered incense structures designed to burn for hours. Just pure luxury.
Exactly. And the tables are practically bowing under the weight of melon cakes and fresh fruits. But at the center of this whole production is the matriarch of the family, GMO.
Right, the absolute boss of the family.
Yeah, and she decides that the family simply must view the moon from the highest point in the garden, this spot called the Convex Emerald Pavilion.
Which, I mean, moving the entire party up to the highest peak is such a highly symbolic action.
It really is. The family is physically moving upward to view the moon at its absolute fullest. But ironically, this mirrors their desperate attempt to maintain the illusion that their own dynasty is still at its absolute peak.
And she doesn't just, take a casual stroll up this hill.
Oh no!
The servants offer to carry her in a bamboo chair because the mossy path is really slippery, but she insists on walking to stretch her joints.
Right, her version of a light stretch.
Exactly. Her version involves a small army. Like, servants and family members walk ahead to clear the path. Women flank her holding hand lanterns to eliminate every single step.
Close aides physically bearing her weight by the arms.
Yeah, and a massive trailing entourage of relatives just following in her wake. It takes over 100 steps to reach the pavilion at the ridge.
And once they finally arrive, the staging is completely immaculate. A large folding screen divides the pavilion, and the tables are perfectly round.
Which the text notes is a really deliberate choice, right?
Yes, it symbolizes family reunion and unbroken unity. The circle is complete.
But the feeling of unity rings really hollow the moment they actually sit down.
Oh, incredibly hollow.
Jiamu looks around these massive, perfectly round tables and makes this rather piercing observation. She sighs, reflecting on the gatherings of her youth, the good old days.
Right.
She notes that in the old days, they would have had 30 or 40 men and women gathered, creating this wall of noise and life. But tonight, she looks at the guests and simply states that the numbers are too few.
Yeah, too few. It's such a heavy moment.
Imagine you're renting out an opulent, cavernous banquet hall for a family reunion. You pay for the chandeliers, the 5-course meal, the string quartet.
Sparing no expense.
Right. But when the doors open, only a fraction of your relatives actually show up. The massive scale of the room and those oversized tables, they don't make the event feel grand.
No, they act as a magnifying glass for all the empty chairs. The scale of the preparation just amplifies the absence.
Exactly. And the Jia family is funding this incredibly expensive facade of prosperity with the custom incense and the army of servants.
But the matriarch herself,
Yeah.
the person at the very apex of this family structure, is openly acknowledging the shrinking presence of her bloodline.
Right. The physical climb to the highest point of the garden contrasts so cruelly with the emotional reality that this family has passed its zenith. They are physically at the summit, but functionally, they're in a state of decay.
So as you can imagine, sitting around dwelling on a shrinking family tree is a guaranteed way to ruin a party.
Yeah, major buzzkill.
Totally. So someone proposes a game to force a little festivity into the room, but games in the Jia household are less about having fun and more about surviving a social pressure cooker.
The rules are simple, but just incredibly stressful. A servant stands behind that large folding screen we mentioned and beats a drum.
Right, a literal ticking clock.
Yeah. And while the drum thumps, a sprig of osmanthus flower is passed rapidly around the table. The second the drum stops, whoever holds the flower must drink a cup of wine and tell a joke to the group.
It resembles musical chairs, basically. But the penalty for losing requires a public performance and vulnerability in front of the entire family hierarchy.
Which is terrifying. And the very first time the drum stops, the flower lands in the hands of Jiazeng.
Oh boy.
Yeah. And the text establishes him as the rigid, terrifyingly strict patriarch of the family. He is the ultimate disciplinarian.
He's not the guy you want doing stand-up comedy.
Yeah. No. And the joke this very serious man decides to tell is frankly jarring. He tells a story about a fiercely henpecked husband who gets drunk on yellow wine and mooncake filling, falls asleep at a friend's house, and misses his curfew.
Okay.
When he staggers home the next day, his furious wife is washing her feet. Her punishment is demanding he licks her feet.
Wow.
Yeah. He actually complies, but his stomach turns and he starts gagging. When the wife erupts in anger at his disgust, he begs for mercy by blaming his nausea on the yellow wine and the mooncake filling rather than her feet.
And the table erupts in laughter, mostly out of shock, I imagine.
Right.
Hearing the austere patriarch deliver a punchline about vomiting and foot-licking is deeply incongruous with his public persona.
Wait, my read on this is that Jiazeng is severely overcompensating here. A guy whose entire identity is built on enforcing the rules suddenly delivering a crass joke.
It feels forced.
It reads like a desperate attempt to play the fun dad, just to lighten the mood his mother ruined by talking about how empty the room is.
Well, overcompensation is a natural modern read, sure.
Yeah.
But the text explicitly points to a different motivation entirely, which is the concept of filial piety, or xiao.
Oh, interesting. How so?
Jiazeng looks at his mother, Jiamu, and sees a flicker of joy in her expression. He internalizes that he must bear joy for her.
Ah, I see.
In this strict Confucian framework, filial piety doesn't just mean respecting your elders. It means your personal dignity is entirely subordinate to your parents' emotional well-being.
Wow, so the disciplinarian debases himself with a crude joke because entertaining the matriarch is his ultimate duty.
Exactly. He performs the role of the jester to maintain the hierarchy. He even pours her a cup of wine afterward to cement the performance.
But of course, this leniency and willingness to play the fool stops abruptly with his generation.
Oh, absolutely. It does not extend downward.
No. When the drum starts again and the flowers passed, it lands on Bayu, Jiazeng's son, and the atmosphere in the room immediately plummets.
You can just feel the tension drop.
The text gives us Bayu's internal panic, which is such a brilliant depiction of social anxiety. He realizes he is in a trap.
A total lose-lose situation.
Exactly. If he tells a joke and it falls flat, his father will scold him for being dull and lacking social grace. If he tells a joke and it lands perfectly, his father will accuse him of being a slick talker with a glib tongue and no moral substance.
Right. He is completely paralyzed by the gaze of the patriarch. There's no winning move for him in the realm of comedy.
So Bayu begs for a different task, asking for an alternative punishment, and Jiazeng drops the foot-licking jester persona in an instant and reverts to the demanding father.
Fun dad's gone.
Gone. He orders Bayu to compose an impromptu poem on the theme of autumn, but he adds a brutal handicap. He forbids Bayu from using the words ice, jade, crystal, or silver.
Which is so harsh. Those 4 words are the foundational building blocks of classical Chinese poetry when describing an autumn moon. The moon is traditionally a plate of white jade. The frost is crushed crystal. The moonlight is spilled silver. By banning those specific words, Jiazeng is forcing his son to invent new metaphors under extreme pressure.
He's basically taking away the ancient literary equivalent of copying and pasting from Wikipedia.
That's a great way to put it.
It's the equivalent of being called on by your most intimidating college professor during Thanksgiving dinner while your entire extended family watches you sweat. You aren't trying to create a masterpiece. You are just trying to survive without publicly failing.
Yeah, and this moment highlights the immense pressure of the imperial examination system. You know, the Kiju.
Right, because for aristocratic families like the Jias, hereditary titles actually degrade over generations.
Exactly. The only way to guarantee the family's long-term survival and political power is for the sons to pass these brutally competitive state exams and secure high-ranking government posts.
And those exams were no joke.
No. They required memorizing hundreds of thousands of characters of classical texts and composing flawless essays in poetry.
So when Jiazeng forces Bayu to write a poem without relying on cliches, he isn't just evaluating his son's artistic merit.
No, he is auditing the family survival plan.
Man! Well, Bayu somehow manages to compose a poem and hands it over. Jiazeng reads it, gives this reluctant nod, and admits it isn't terrible.
High praise from him.
Seriously. But he can't stop himself from criticizing. He immediately complains to the table that Bao Yu refuses to study hard enough and that his phrasing lacks elegance.
And this is where the matriarch flexes her power again. Jiamu immediately intervenes to shield her grandson.
Ah, she shuts it down.
She does. She tells Jia Zhang to back off, reminding him that Bao Yu is just a child and that the family doesn't need him to be some grand literary genius.
And her intervention forces Jia Zhang into an immediate retreat. The fierce disciplinarian just melts away. He agrees with his mother profusely, and then he actually rewards Bao Yu.
Right, he orders a servant to fetch 2 special fans he brought back from Hainan as a prize.
Which is wild. And another young relative, Jialan, watches this entire sequence play out. He recognizes the formula poems, equal prizes, and safety.
Smart kid.
Very. He quickly drafts his own poem, presents it, and secures a reward as well. Underneath the veneer of this holiday parlor game, the adults are relentlessly testing the youth.
The children are essentially performing for their survival and status within the hierarchy.
But, you know, the friction between a demanding father and an anxious son is a pretty common familial trope. The dynamic shifts into something much more venomous when the drum beats again.
Oh yeah, the flower lands on Jia Shay, Jia Zhang's older brother.
Right. And she takes his drink and delivers a joke about an acupuncturist.
This joke is so loaded.
Extremely. The setup involves a healer treating a sick mother whose diagnosis is heart fire, but instead of placing the needle near the heart, the healer places the needle far away over in the ribs. The son of the sick woman questions the healer, pointing out that the ribs are nowhere near the heart, and the healer delivers the punchline. He says, "You don't know that the hearts of parents in this world are mostly biased."
Right, and to understand this, you have to look at traditional Chinese medicine. Heart fire, or sinhuo, relates to internal distress, anxiety, or anger that needs to be vented.
Okay, that makes sense.
But she uses the medical setup to deliver a devastating pun. The term for a biased heart in Chinese Pian Sin literally means a heart that leans to one side.
Oh, wow.
It is the exact phrase used for a parent who plays favorites. So Ji is openly accusing his mother, Jia Mu, of favoring his younger brother, Jia Zhang, over him.
Delivering a strike like that in front of the entire family, including the servants, I mean, that just shatters the polite facade of the gathering.
Completely shatters it.
We have all witnessed a moment where someone makes a quote-unquote joke that drains all the warmth from the room, leaving behind this dead, awkward silence.
Yes. And Jia Mu's response is a masterclass in retaining power. She doesn't yell or cause a scene at all.
She just sits there. Right?
She quietly drinks half a cup of wine, lets the silence hang in the air, and then calmly states, "I also need this old woman to needle me."
Ouch.
Yeah. She acknowledges the insult, but refuses to lose her composure. Her icy calm forces Ji Shi to realize the absolute magnitude of his misstep.
He immediately panics. Right.
He does. He stands up with a forced smile and pours her wine, attempting to brush the whole accusation off as a silly joke.
Yeah.
But the damage is irreversible at this point.
The game has essentially dragged their deepest resentments into the open.
Exactly.
And Jiqi's resentment continues to burn. In the very next round, he uses a child as a proxy to attack his brother's entire worldview.
This part is fascinating.
The drum beats, and the flower lands on a younger boy named Jia Huan. Now, having watched Bao Yu and Jialan win fans for their poetry, Jia Huan is eager for a reward too.
Makes sense.
So he writes a poem. But the text explicitly notes his style is highly unorthodox. He prefers poetry that is weird, ghostly, and immortal.
And this aesthetic directly rebels against the Confucian ideal.
Really? How so?
Proper poetry in this culture was expected to be grounded, moral, and reflective of a disciplined mind suited for state service. Writing about ghosts and immortals is seen as frivolous, erratic, and deeply unscholarly.
So naturally, Jia Zhang reads this ghost poem and just erupts.
He loses it.
He labels the boys a lower class or evil faction, declaring that their writing proves they are impossible to teach and doomed to be useless. He is ready to unleash his full fury on the kid.
But then she steps in.
Right. He demands to read the poem, and upon finishing it, he loudly praises the boy. He claims the poem has bone and demonstrates true aristocratic arrogance.
Now let's be clear here. She does not care about the literary merit of a teenager's ghost poem.
No, not at all.
He is fighting an ideological proxy war against Jia Zhang, because Jia Zhang represents the anxious striver.
Right, the guy who thinks they have to earn everything.
Exactly. He believes the family's survival depends on the cold window method of studying. That trope of the poor scholar grinding away in a freezing room with only a firefly for light just to pass the imperial exams. Jia Zheng believes they must earn their keep through discipline.
And she violently rejects that mindset. He uses his praise of the poem to argue that noble families are fundamentally different. He claims they don't need to suffer like poor bookworms.
Right.
They are aristocrats born into power and wealth. Their bloodline is sufficient. A little wildness, a little arrogance in their writing is the prerogative of a lord.
He even physicalizes this argument by patting Jia Huan on the head and loudly hinting that with such a bold attitude, the boy might eventually inherit the family's hereditary title.
Which is such a low blow. Dangling the family title in front of a child just to spite his brother.
It forces Jia Zhang to frantically intervene and shut the conversation down, arguing it's far too early to discuss inheritance.
It's crazy how a clash over a single weird poem exposes this massive ideological schism. The anxious discipline of a family trying to earn its survival crashes directly into the entitled arrogance of an aristocracy that believes it's too big to fail.
The tension at this point is just suffocating.
It really is. And finally, the gathering reaches its breaking point. The text notes it is past the second watch.
And in traditional Chinese timekeeping, the first watch starts around 7 p.m., making the second watch roughly 9 to 11 p.m., so it's getting late.
Right. Jiamu, having endured crude jokes, high-stakes poetry exams, and thinly veiled accusations of terrible parenting, finally dismisses the men.
She's had enough.
She instructs them to leave so she and the women can relax for a while.
And the phrasing implies that actual relaxation was an impossibility as long as the men and their relentless power struggles occupied the space.
So true. The sources take this beautifully staged, incense-filled moon-viewing party and reveal it as a battlefield.
A family grappling with inevitable decline forces its strict patriarch to play the fool for survival.
Bitter favoritism is weaponized through a medical punchline.
And a teenager's ghost poem becomes the battleground for two fundamentally incompatible visions of the dynasty's future.